Welcome to GYDA Initiative Talks. In this episode, Robert talks to Steve Hyde, co-founder and CEO of Push, an award-winning Google Premier Partner agency. Push offer PPC and digital marketing services which are based on their own in-house developed technologies. They are globally the only agency to have won a Premier Partner Award 3 years running. Steve shares the history, growth and future of Push, insights which are priceless for any digital agency leader.
Hello and welcome to the GYDA Initiative Podcast, Grow Your Digital Agency. It's an absolute pleasure today to have Steve Hyde from Push with me. Push are known for winning a whole load of awards with Google, but rather than me talk about Push and Steve, hi Steve, and tell us about yourself. Tell us about Push.
Hi, Robert. Push have been around now since 2007. It was a business founded by myself and Ricky Solanki. I think it's worth going through the little background really, because we started really as two independent web consultants. Kind of our eyes met across a crowded internet consulting room one evening in London, and I realised that Ricky was very good at building websites. I was pretty good at selling them, and we started working together, and the business relationship grew from there. First few years,
So Steve, when was that? How long ago was that?
2005, I met Ricky, and 2007 we formed the company. We actually started working together on a very, very loose arrangement. Literally, I'd go out there trying to win business and get a couple of website sales. And I might get one for me, and I'd pass one to Ricky. And we literally had two separate businesses, which we kept completely independent and fully owned by each individual. And we just share the business around. It just made more sense, rather than us both going out selling and both building, that one would do it. And yeah, that was 2005. And in 2006, as we got closer together, we thought, yeah, why don't we start and set up a fully fledged business and form Push in 2007. So the first few years, I mean, we look back and we talk about stories, but they were tough, really, really tough. We were trying to do all things for all people. We were selling websites. We were trying to run SEO campaigns. We were doing this thing called pay-per-click. We were running email marketing, and clients would come and go. But what we did find out generally is that when clients came back, they came back for the PPC bit. They'd come back and say, look, yeah, thanks for what you did. The website was okay, but we're only back for the PPC side this time. So we started to learn by default, really, that PPC was what we were good at doing. And as the phrase goes, it's also what we like doing. So we were good at it because we liked doing it. We liked doing it because we were good at it, etc. It was just a virtuous circle. So we started building up the company there, initially taking on interns or placement students to build up the business. And by 2000, well, obviously we've gone through the recession, of course. But by 2012, the business really started to kick on. And that was when we really doubled down on PPC. But there's a whole load of pain and misery in between that 2007 and 2012 bit. It was really, really, really tough. There's the tales of, both Ricky and I had both started families. Ricky's kids were very young. My kids were very young too. And there were tales many times when I'd have to ring up Ricky and request to put 50 quid into my bank account so that I could actually pay for the petrol.
And lots of people listening now have just gone through that or going through that. It's kind of really typical. People are setting up agencies. The family thing comes along, and cash is incredibly tight. I mean, cash is a real issue, isn't it?
Yeah, it was really, really tough. I mean, there were many times when we were kind of like having calls from the VAT man. I mean, we didn't deliberately go out to use VAT as a buffer, but it was more like just poor cash flow planning and you just understanding how business works, that sometimes customers just don't pay you on time.
Yeah.
The VAT man gets it in the butt, really. But there were times when we had the man literally knocking at the door, and we'd be running around the office like this, going la la la, and it was tough, really difficult. I guess looking back as well on that period, I think I don't think we had any alternative but to plough on. We believed in what we were doing. There was a point of almost no return where you're into it for a few years. You think, I can't really go back into the corporate world and do what I was doing before. And Ricky was the same, so we just had to go on together.
So how many people are you now, and how did you get from that tough bit to being the inverted commas successful go-to admired agency that you are now? What happened?
We're about 60 people now. We're taking on 8 new people in the summer, 4 in 2 slots, 4 in June and 4 in September. So we're in a position now where we've grown kind of pretty strong for throughout that period from 2012. And so how do we get there? I would say that I could come out with all the cliches, and there is stuff that about how we work with culture and so on, but we have been very, very, focus has been key to us. When we focused hard on PPC, that was a real turning point for us in 2012. That then gave us the initiative to really learn fast and become, give ourselves, if you like, a benchmark to become experts in that particular field and sector. We then, as we've employed coaches along the way to help guide us, and that's been an important part of the process. And that also started in 2012. And we've had a plan. We've always had a plan. We've had a 3-year plan, which we regularly review, which is broken down into annual plans. We budget very tight. We stick to our budgets. We have quarterly objectives. So all of those things are key to our success, really.
But I guess my question to you would be, there are loads of agencies who do exactly what you've just said, which is we do the planning, we map it out, we budget, we break it down into quarterly, we break it down into monthly, and yet, there's something else. I'm not quite sure what it is. There's something else, because lots of people do all the right stuff, but they're still stuck at 13, 14 people. They've never managed to break that 15 barrier. So, are you able to articulate what it is that you think you had that meant that you kept on going where others run out of puff or don't have the right skills? Or that's just a really curious question for me.
Yeah. So there's a combination of things. So ironically, one of the things that stops me from defining it is also quirkily part of the success is we're always something around being quite humble and almost frightened to fail, and never really complacent. So that was part of the ingredient. We were very it felt for us really tough. I guess yes, lots of other agencies go through that point where they've got kids and so on, but it felt really tough those first 5 years, and so. Out of that came a lot of hunger, a lot of humility, and I think part of the success as well. So if you add on top of that the fact that we both had one another. So if Ricky were feeling, this isn't working, this is just not worth it anymore, I'd pick him up, and vice versa. So we were fortunate in that respect that Ricky and I, as partners, who'd never met before 2005, just kind of hit it off. And we had very similar personality types that seemed to work well together. Very good at starting things quickly. And we managed to get the right people on board to help us grow the business. So we brought on people that weren't like us, that were able to see things through and fill in the details. So there's a lot of that. Another part of it would be perhaps the location help where we are. Perhaps the location if we tried to build this business maybe in, I don't know, Cardiff, or I'm not saying there aren't great agencies in Cardiff or
Careful.
but being in northwest London or West London, we had a pool of people, so we were far out enough from London to not to need to charge ridiculous fees, and yet we were in this sort of zone of West London, which frankly there's a lot of people coming from the Asian diaspora, so particularly Gujarati community, where we built a lot of our business from. So typically Indians that come from, or parents that come from Kenya and Uganda, very hardworking, very comfortable with data, good work ethic. And so those things have helped propel us, and we haven't found it really difficult to bring employees in along the journey. I mean, it's a lot easier if you're bang in central London, but we've not found it a major challenge. So along the way, the biggest barriers to our growth haven't been, can we market to people so that they're interested in our product or our service? Can we then convert them to customers through our sales skills? Our biggest barrier along the last 5 years has been, can we get the people in to keep building and growing the business, as in the staff, and we've got better and better at doing that.
So you kind of alluded to this diversity thing. So everyone talks diversity. Everyone goes, because it's almost like the cool thing you're meant to be talking about in the 21st century, is it? We're diverse. We've got a good spread, and you picked up awards and things for diversity. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a business of about 60 people. Obviously, as you can see, I'm very English and white, male, and unashamedly so. And yet the business has, in a business of 60 people, there are only 7 white English men in the business. So looking at the biggest single, if you categorize it as black and minority ethnic groups, looking at men and women, the biggest group is male, BAME. The next biggest group is male, white, if you like, and then but we've got good representation of women as well, with about 40% of our staff being women. We have deliberately gone out and tried to get women into the business. I've got no issue over saying that. We found that when at one stage when we dropped the number of women in the business, when it dropped, I think we had about 15 people at the time, and we let's say we had 4 or 5 women. We lost 3 women in a period, so it went down to 14 people with 2 women, and the culture became very laddie. We quickly thought that we needed to address that. So now we have a much stronger balance. The diversity thing, it's people. Lots of people are talking about it. I mean, I was out at Marketing Live. Ricky and Grant were out in a conference in Seattle with Microsoft, and Google and Microsoft are talking about diversity relentlessly. I learned the phrase, leveraging diversity back in the 90s from Pepsi. So, I look at it as a very, from a very free market point of view. I look that to me, it just made sense to take on people from diverse backgrounds, because you tend to get, where if they're being ignored by other employers, you get better value employees. So we're now in this kind of virtuous circle where people will look at our site and they'll look at the different faces, the different colours of faces, the different genders. They can see that we're diverse, and it therefore encourages people from other backgrounds to come and apply, because they know that they can get on at Push. So there's something around there. I think it is, it's hard to build a diverse business. Somebody recently was talking about diversity, and another agency kind of challenged me on it, and they happened to be in, I think they were in, not Scarborough, it was somewhere in Lincolnshire. And I said, look, fair enough, that is a bit more challenging. The diversity, you don't have that opportunity there. But
Brexit country.
Yes, it's just not going to happen. But I think my tip would be, each of us as agency owners, agency workers, a lot of people are missing the opportunity, and it's sometimes just thinking about, well, okay, where are we lacking in diversity, and how can we address that?
But what I don't get, well, I do, but I'd just like you to maybe talk a bit about is what is the advantage of having a over diverse or a more diverse than average culture? What's the advantage? Do you think it makes you more profitable? Do you think it makes you a better fit? I mean, what are the advantages?
So I think there are several. So the first one, at a very basic level, is that if you understand that in the UK, that, as an example, and it's the same in many other parts of Europe, that people from minority groups tend to be underpaid versus the average. So the first advantage is if you can get someone that's got 3 A-star A levels or a 2-1 degree from a certain university, if they happen to come from an ethnically diverse group, they're more like they're often finding that they're not getting the same job opportunities as their exact same white English equivalent. So very simple. Number one is that you're attracting people. You're getting well, we pay above market rates, but we're probably getting brighter and better people because they happen to be from ethnic minorities. So that's the first thing. So just to be clear, we're not taking on people and that would not be a great way of running a business. So that's the first. The second thing is, if you actually look at, we're in this digital world, and it's increasingly about these little devices here. The people out there looking at those devices are not white 50 plus 60 plus year old blokes generally, although they do as well. But the consumer base, if you look at the consumer base and what consumers are doing, the consumers are they're on Instagram, they're from very different backgrounds. So our boys and girls need to understand the consumer base as well, which is incredibly diverse in the UK. So if you don't do that, if you've got a bunch of, again, sorry to pick on white 40-year-old men in, let's pick somewhere where I hope there isn't an agency in. There's always an agency somewhere. In Epping in Essex, which is where I'm from. Okay, if you've got a guy, 10 guys and a couple of girls, all white, sitting trying to guess how they're going to run an Instagram campaign for a new hair care brand that is going across, the UK, aimed at under 30s. That brand is inevitably going to be picked up by people from ethnic backgrounds, and so you need to be able to be in tune with those. So that's the second reason. By the way, I think there's some stats from America that I think the highest proportion of, say, Instagram users in the US is, I think it's Latin American, and then I think the white group is like number 3 in terms of like Instagram usage. So again, there's a decent example. So that's the second reason, the consumer. Thirdly, our customers, our clients. They're very diverse. So we have clients that come from different backgrounds. There's a good representation of people, particularly high number of female owned entrepreneurial groups as well. So that's good for them. If you walk into an office and you are a woman CEO, a woman marketing director, female marketing director, and you see a bunch of blokes, it's not really going to, inspire you in the same way, I think, as it's seeing a much more diverse offering.
Yeah, I totally get that. I've just come back from Madrid for a conference for hotel travel industry.
Yeah.
And the proportion of women in the room, women as key decision makers in organizations like Hilton, Dorchester, and then at the same time organizations like Booking.com, Airbnb were there. The world has changed. The world has changed. It's not like it was, and it's not 50-50. But it's certainly fundamentally different out there than it was before. So that kind of adds up. Your awards. There's a lot of hoo-ha talked about awards. I mean, you could pick up anyone running an agency could win an award every month. There's always Buckinghamshire Chamber of Commerce or Digital Buckinghamshire, or We Are Buckinghamshire, or Buckinghamshire Us, and also more importantly, there's a whole bunch of awards that you just need to pay, £500 to subscribe and then buy a table for £3,000. And hey, guess what? You're 99% guaranteed to win an award. So my question to you is, as an agency, which on your website, I think awards comes up in the first sentence. Yeah. Are awards worth anything? And are all awards equal? Do clients really care about awards? Is it worth spending time on? I'll be really interested to know what your point of view is on that.
Yeah. So we never went for awards because we saw in the past a lot of people contacting us, as you've just said, with it's a gala dinner event,
awardsareus.com.
Awards are us, yeah. And it really, really, really irritated me. I have to say, it pissed me off something rotten just seeing how people would do that. Didn't interest me. I used to go back in my old world I used to go to events with the National Confectioners Benevolent Fund, where they'd all dish out a load of awards, dicky bow ties, and they'd all pat themselves on the back for raising, and you sat there at somewhere like the Savoy or wherever, the Dorchester, and they'd all pat themselves on the back for raising like £6,000 for some charity that evening, and they'd probably spent like 120 grand on beer and champagne and so on. So I always found those things really, really frustrating, tedious, annoying. There's definitely something in me and in Ricky. We're quite rebellious people, so we didn't build the agency up from an agency background. So we didn't come from agencies. We didn't then go out and bring people in from agencies, and we didn't want to be just another Me Too. So we avoided them. We became, and we regularly got calls from people looking at awards, and we still do now. But we became aware of the Google Awards when we became a Premier Partner 3 years ago, and they were unpaid. You could not pay to enter them. You had to be a partner, a Premier Partner, and all the cases went to Google. Obviously, Google needs to be really squeaky clean. All the cases were judged not only by a panel at Google, but also by an independent panel. I think it was Deloitte's. To our surprise, in the first year of a Premier Partner, we won an award for highest level of customer satisfaction, which was actually driven by Google contacting a bunch of our customers and going through a bunch of very objective questions. And the net effect of winning that was, it was massive in terms of employee motivation internally. It was a real significant symbol for us, for Ricky and I, in terms of recognition. And we then got the bit between our teeth. We then thought, okay, this is actually something that was very motivational to the team. From a customer point of view, what we saw, two things we would see. Would see more customers. It's hard to say how many more we attracted, but we definitely noticed a distinct raise in the conversion levels. So from sales qualified leads to customers, we used to convert about 52%. It went up to around 70% after the awards that we were winning. And we managed to raise our prices as well. So the awards have been great.
So go on. I mean, I know you're modest, but what are some of the awards that you've won?
We've won 3 big Google awards. They are highest level of customer satisfaction in EMEA, so Europe, Middle East, and Africa. We won the same level of award for EMEA in mobile innovation, which we then went on to represent Europe for Google's only to date global awards. And we won the global award for innovation in mobile marketing, which was amazing. We sat right at the back of the room of about 1,000 people. We didn't expect to win because we're up against Korea, Japan, all these, fantastic, areas and markets where mobile is so much more prevalent, and we won. And then last year we won an award for growing business online, again in EMEA. So the global awards, I think they are only one every 2 years, so we might be entering them again. So 3 awards, to my knowledge. I think that's the highest number of awards that any agency in Europe has won. So we're very proud of that. We do state that now. We make a play on it. It's been actually difficult to get that message across in the wider media, to be honest with you. It's been hard trying to get that message because it's a real strong success story, but the media, the wider news coverage is dominated by disappointing stories. But you've got this incredible diverse business of 60 people, young people from all sorts of backgrounds, and we're winning these big global awards for Google. So yeah, we're really proud.
And if you just kind of step back and look at the bigger picture for agencies, I mean, we're always living in crazy times, but we seem to be living in totally crazy times now, whether it's Cambridge Analytica or GDPR or requirement for multi-channel, because Google was the only gig in town 5 years ago, but now you've got Bing, you've got Facebook, you've got YouTube. Mm-hmm. We've got payment systems changing into double approval in September, which no one seems to be really paying any attention to. In this incredibly changing world with all these challenges going on around you, I mean, how are you making sense of what being a digital agency will look like in 18 months or 2 years' time? Because it just feels that it's going to be a very different environment to what it is now.
Yeah, it does feel that way. It is changing very quickly, which is fun and exciting. As you summarise those challenges there, it makes me think about retiring. The way you just
you're not old enough, Steve.
I feel it today. No, it's exciting. How do we? I mean, look, we have as a team, so it's not been laid down by Ricky and I. We have a set of values which the team have developed, which are around 4 key things. So, and they helped with the awards. They helped with innovation. So the values are family, which means that we are, we come with that kind of heavy Asian background in our business as well. It's a very strong family focus. We also recognise that we're a second family to the boys and girls that joined us from university. Family, being open. You need to be open in this environment. You can't be closed in the way that information is shared. Always ahead and fast. So the always ahead bit is something where we're constantly going out there, looking at the landscape, where it's going, where you guys are at various conferences. Every week for the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've been at some conference or other. So we're learning constantly. We're looking ahead, and we're trying to make sense of where we see things going, and then taking action. We are pretty quick at making decisions, and we are paranoid about losing that speed initiative. We don't want to, with 60 people, we don't want to become slow. So I think that's how we generally keep on top of it. I think we then do, it's that old phrase, does it make the boat go faster? So we're trying, for example, you mentioned GDPR. If I'm honest with you, we saw a lot of other agencies and other businesses much smaller than us really focusing hard on what GDPR implications were. I mean, we took it seriously, but we didn't put. We tended to focus on the growth opportunities or wider growth opportunities we see for our business. We didn't see how GDPR would necessarily grow our business, so we kind of. I wouldn't say we let other people do the learning. It's not quite but we kind of we waited until it was clear about the implications for agencies, rather than doing loads of groundwork or everyone inventing the same wheel at the same time. We waited, and then we did the due diligence and impacted very quickly what we needed to do.
But what about the bigger world? Because we're in a world where consultants are buying marketing consultancies are buying digital agencies are either going totally obsessively PPC, or they're trying to become brand agencies. There's a whole piece of 15-person agencies getting bought out or selling because they can't get bigger. There's a piece about, is it good enough to be an agency in the UK when you're competing against agencies in the States or in Europe? It just feels that there's very little that is certain about the best way forward.
Yeah. I guess it must be very confusing for businesses to try and plot that path. But there are some. I think it's not necessarily knowing exactly where you are going to be and what the routes to success are. It's about knowing what to avoid. So you're right about being a small-ish agency. The challenge is there if you are in a world that's becoming, as the phrase goes, omnichannel. I think it's tough. It's going to be tough for those businesses that are 10 to 15 people and they're full service. They're trying to say that our position is we can do SEO, we can do PPC, we can do social, we can do web design, we can do your email. If you've got some design work that's offline, we can do that as well. Those businesses are going to find it increasingly difficult to compete against either the vertical, the specialists in a field. And a lot of it goes back to common sense marketing. That's the lessons from the 1980s, in search of excellence and all those sorts of things. Stick to the knitting, all that sort of stuff. Being focused is still important, without question. There is some advantage of scale, I think now. I think there's some advantages in scaling up. But if I were a smaller agency, because in some eyes we're still a small agency at 60 people. But if I were a smaller agency now with 10 to 15 people, I'd be thinking, okay, automation is coming. Automation is coming fast. The conference I was in Google in San Francisco last week, that was the number one agenda that they wanted to get across to the agency partners there. They were saying to the agency partners, look, automation is going to be a massive part of the future. It will impact on agencies. And they weren't saying that. They were saying that in a helpful way. They were saying that you need to either find a solution to this within your own business, or you need to re-engineer how your business is structured. So if I were a smaller agency, I'd be thinking about how I focus. Do I focus on a vertical market? Do I focus on a particular skill set? Conversion rate optimization, Instagram marketing. How do I focus? Would be the thing that goes through my head now. If I were running around as the agency in Chelmsford with that full service team and just being happy with the existing client base I've got, which is spread across a wide range of businesses, I think that I'd want someone to come and tap me on the shoulder and say, you need to look up and watch out, because this is going to change quite quickly.
Yeah, and I think it is, and I think I think we'll look back on this interview in just 6 months or 12 months, and the changes will be rapid. I mean, as we kind of switch back to Push, I mean, what do you imagine Push looking like in 18 months or 2 years time? I mean, do you see yourselves doing, selling the same thing into the same market? Do you see yourselves niching more? Do you see yourselves offering new products and services, different countries? Where are you focusing?
So we are, we'd be described really as an agency with some really good tech. So we've got about 300 scripts that we run in the background. We're doubling down. We're investing a lot of our own profits into developing our own systems and software. So we're trying to transition from an agency with great tech to more of a tech company that has an agency attached to it. That's the kind of transition we're looking to make. So I see us as having far more, a larger number of customers, perhaps paying potentially smaller fees as we spread our ability to cover a wider market. We have looked at going into international markets. We've been on trips to China a few times. We've got some pockets of business in places like Romania and Greece and other areas. That's something we'd like to do more of. And it's been relatively easy to make a start in those markets. It's been harder to actually move it through to some scale. So I think that's where we'll be in a very short period of time. I can see at least, I'm not going to say which, because I don't want to be proven wrong, but I can see at least one international market that's going to work for us in the next 12 months as we keep growing.
It is obvious. I mean, it's not obvious. So obvious is the wrong word. I'll rephrase it. If one has a decent platform, if one has a decent set of systems and processes, then there's a kind of an assumption that if it works in the UK, it should be able to work in an other country. I mean, obviously, you've got to account for the fact that Germany is sort of 5 years behind us, but France is 7 years, but Spain is 10 years, but America is about the same in terms of internet savviness, and Romania is probably about 10, 15 years. But I guess the implication, and I guess part of this drive for AI and this drive for the technology is that in some senses it shouldn't matter where your agency is, because you can be competing against either less formal, less mature agencies, or too big and too large agencies in other places. So I can see that's part of the drive for the AI and for the platform.
The sessions, Robert, we had with Google last week, I mean, they made it very, very clear that, and in a way it's surprising, but they want their channel partners, they want their partner agencies to be aware that we're moving to an omni-channel market. They want, and they said, look, you might think this is strange for us to make this statement. You might think it's not in Google's interest, but the reason that it is in their interest is that if their partners fail, then they'll find it less able for Google to get out to the business market. So they need partner agencies to work with businesses. Equally, the customer is demanding it. The clients out there, the question they used to ask us 4 or 5 years ago was, "Hey, I'm doing this Google AdWords thing, but I kind of run out of steam. I need some help. Can you help me?" Now they're coming to us and saying, many of them are still asking that same question, but it's increasingly the questions are, "I'm not quite sure which platform to work with." And where
I think you're being incredibly polite, because the conference I was at yesterday for the travel industry, it's a global conference, and I would say that people are not, well, they're almost panicking. You can see the whites of their eyes, because they just don't know. They don't know where to turn. They don't know.
Yeah.
They've got, in that particular environment, the online travel agencies are eating their lunch, their breakfast, their dinner for them by taking 18-20% of bed prices before the hotel gets anywhere near it. They now have a system where punters can cancel up to 3 days in advance, and it's a month back situation. They don't know which platform to go on, and it's kind of like they've lost sight. They've lost sight of real and you and I talk about basics quite often, but they've lost sight of, dare I say, Theodore Levitt, 1961, marketing myopia.
Yeah.
Which is about, it's not about the tactics, or the tactics are important, but the tactics depend upon the strategy. But it's not about the strategy, but actually it depends on understanding who the customer is, what the customer wants, and where they want. And that old quote about, if you think the solution is a nail, all your problems, all your solutions are going to be a hammer. And it feels that particular industry, and I think any industry, just doesn't know where to turn. And so, how do you see the role of a digital agency? Do you see a digital agency, because you're talking on the one hand about scaling up with more attractively priced offerings? Do you not also see that the digital agency becomes, on the one hand, more commoditized, but on the other hand, that the digital agency needs to become maybe more consultative, more not just selling PPC? Because I would argue I could buy PPC from Bangalore for $5 an hour. I know that's not.
You can.
So is there not also an argument that says that your agency needs to become more, go up the food chain, spend more time as a board member, spend more time talking to the marketing director, not the marketing manager, spend more time talking about brand, not just clicks?
Well, and as ever, you're absolutely right about that. We're noticing that at 2 levels. So we are, like, almost without recognizing the problem, we know instinctively we need to get smarter graduates joining us. So we need smarter people, because the challenges, the customer conversations we're having, even with the old type of customer that we used to have, the SME, the middle-sized business, somebody spending £5,000, £10,000 a month on digital advertising. The conversations we're having with them now are more complex. So we need smarter people, and there is no doubt that the market is moving that way very, very quickly. So I say, without question, if you said to me, where will it be? Is it going to be some kind of automated commodity where actually it's just a team of engineers and a few marketing? It's not. It's going to be a team of people that are highly capable of being able to understand their customer's business, ask their customer, or the client, we use the word customer, but customer, understand them and challenge them with questions that they may not feel comfortable with, so that they're able to understand the potential futures for them and how they grow their business. So I think we need to be a lot more challenging in the conversations that we're having, and we're going to need brighter people to be able to do that. So it is definitely more consultative. I like what you said about Theodore Levitt. I remember reading it. I must have read that article 3 or 4 different times I probably haven't read it in the last 20 years.
But not in 1961. You didn't read it, I hope.
No. Well, I read it in 1980, if that helps. And then I read it again when so I've read it a few times. And actually, it's amazing how many people don't get that message, or they get the message and then forget it. We're just seeing it all the time. I mean,
And what he said, and the thing is, what he says, and then we need to start wrapping up. What he says is really, it's all about segmentation and differentiation. It's all about figuring out who you're selling to and what their problems and needs and hurts and wants and itches and scratches are. And it's all about differentiation, which is about, being different from your competitors and being clear about what you do that's different, and therefore making that fit together. And then you see stuff like the what do they call it? The value proposition canvas 2017, and I would argue that it's the same essential piece of work, which is figuring out who you're selling to and why they should buy from you. Just to wrap up, Steve, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you, getting a real insight into the Push way. I've got kind of 2 questions. You can answer them whichever way you want, but I think it would really help people who've been watching. Question 1 would be, if you were to take the same journey again, what would you do differently? And kind of the part 2 of that is, what is it that you think is the secret sauce? What do you think is the reason why you've been so successful? So what would you do differently, and what do you think you got right?
I think do differently would probably be, if I could go back and speak to myself and have a word in my ear, I would have taken on investment to grow bigger, faster in the earlier stages. That's the first thing. I think we were lacking in confidence in the first few years. The signs were there to know that we should have believed more. And I think we were scarred and hurt by the recession and just the pains of building a business when you've got mouths to feed and mortgages to pay. I'd go back and I'd have said, you know what? I know it's really tough, but go out there and bet everything on this, because the signs are there that can really work. That's the first thing. So as far as the secret, I'm not holding back on the secret, because it's not always obvious to that. I think there's something around the culture within the business, which again we all know you can't just come and copy a culture, but there's something about the culture that we do give people. We have a very low churn of customers, employees, but we treat people very well, and we encourage them to move quickly and to learn and to keep developing. There's something in there that is key to all of this. So whether you look at our values that we talk about, so being fast, being ahead, being open, and being family, the mixture is in there somewhere.
Fast, ahead, open, family. I mean, it's a great combination, and presumably massive focus on, well, I guess, execution, but that's part of the fast bit, I guess.
Yeah,
about making stuff happen.
I've got a final thought for you. So,
because
you said it, and as you were thinking, I was smiling and thinking of the marketing myopia. So, we can bastardize one of the great Bill Shankly quotes, which was, "Football is a game complicated by fools," or whatever it is. But I think the marketing is a game complicated by fools. Marketing isn't that difficult. You know, it really isn't that difficult. It's not difficult for our clients, and it's not difficult for us. So there's something around there. It's like, maybe some people need to go back to the basics and just look at some, good 101 marketing tactics and strategies.
Brilliant. I'm absolutely with you on that. That's been a really...
You just haven't coined that phrase. So marketing is a simple game, complicated by fools.
Marketing is a simple game, complicated by, and I think you're right. And I think if you look around at what people are trying to do, client side, clients really struggle to understand how we as agencies can help them. Now, how can marketing have got things so wrong that their clients don't understand what they're selling? Listen, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you, Steve. It's been really, really great. It's been really great to get an insight into Push, to get an insight into your honesty about the difficulties you had, diversity awards, and you are the modesty thing, but you are the #1 award-winning Google agency, which is just amazing. And thanks for sharing all your thoughts on growing an agency. So
you're welcome.
That, and say thank you very much, and goodbye.
Cheers.
Okay, bye.